Today I'm going to be working on this Xbox Series X. This has been sent in by a customer. The booking form on this one says that the console was working fine, he's gone to bed and woke up to no power, so it's just randomly died. So hopefully we're going to be able to get that fixed today. But if you're new to the channel, my name is Hakko. I'm an electronics technician. I mainly work on games consoles, but I do work on other stuff as well. So if that's the sort of stuff you're into, be sure to get subscribed and turn on the bell notifications, and that way you don't miss any future videos. And if you do want to organise a repair, if you've got a laptop, MacBook, games console, or anything else that you need repairing, get in touch with me at www.thecoda.repair. And if you need parts and supplies for these, you can buy those from my online store, consolefix.shop. All of the links will be in the video description, as well as the links to the tools and stuff that I use in the videos. So with that being said, let's get into today's repair. Today's video is sponsored by PCBWay. Whether you've got a simple project that requires a quick mod board, or you want to launch your own products to the world, PCBWay can help. With fantastic pricing on multi-layer PCBs, flex ribbons, 3D printing, and even laser cutting solutions, you're sure to find everything you'll need all in one place. Custom PCBs start from just $5 for a 1 to 2 layer board with a fast 24-hour build time and free shipping on orders over $30. PCBWay also offer aluminium PCBs starting at just $120 per square meter. Check out what PCBWay have to offer by clicking on the top link in the video description or in the top pinned comment and get your project started today. Thanks again to PCBWay for sponsoring the channel. Now let's get back to the video. So as you'll see here, we try and turn this on. My power cable obviously works and we get absolutely nothing. So completely dead, stone dead, no power. The annoying thing about this is it's covered in polystyrene because, well, it was sent in a box with polystyrene and yeah, nothing covering it. So we have polystyrene absolutely everywhere. It's all over my kitchen floor, it's all over my desk, it's all over me. And most importantly, it's in every single port. Oh no. Yeah, so I've got to try and get some of these out, but obviously, you know, that's not the primary concern right now. The primary concern right now is getting this thing to turn on. Well, it's dropping through as I'm trying to get it anyway. Yeah, the primary concern is obviously trying to get this to turn on and stuff like that. But yeah, we'll do our best. We'll see what we can do with it. So I'm going to get this apart. Obviously, you don't want to sit here and watch me disassembling a console. That's pretty boring. If you do need to know how to take these apart, not sponsored, but iFixit do have a pretty good guide on complete disassembly for these things. And I think Microsoft have just released service manuals for these as well. So, you know, I'm saying that in a little bit of a upspeak tone because I'm not sure, even though I hate upspeak personally. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that they've just released a service guide on how to actually disassemble these things. And yeah, that should help you if you need to take it apart. A little tip as well, there's a button on this flex cable connector here. Just press it with a pair of tweezers, because otherwise you'll damage the connector. Alright, so let's have a look. See that? Yeah, and that's inside the console as well. That's inside the USB ports for the console. So now that the power's unplugged, I will get that out. There we are. So no more polystyrene inside the ports. Obviously that would cause connection issues. But yeah, I'll get this apart, take out these screws and give it a test. If this is the power supply which is faulty, we're not going to be repairing the power supply because these are impossible to get to the components. There's so much putty around them, it's unbelievable. Okay, we are pretty much ready here to start working on this, and this is quite strange because this is a V1 console. I did not expect that. So the reason I know that is because I can see markings on the board of what components are where and stuff like that. You don't get that on a V2 board, and I'm assuming that this is going to be one with a metal plate over the APU clamp. Yeah, V1 board that was manufactured in 2022. That is quite odd. Interesting. It's not that interesting, but it's a bit strange. It is really, really strange. But anyway, let's just see if we can figure out what's actually going on with this. So you can see here that we've got the layout of the boards. So we've got the APU board here. So underneath this metal plate here, we have a APU clamp, and then you take that clamp off and this board comes out. And then we've got the Southbridge board here, which is separate. So this handles a lot of power for example, the USBs and stuff like that. It handles Ethernet, USB, Wi-Fi, all of that stuff, right? So the issue can be one of three things. It can be this board here, it can be this board here, or it can be the power supply. So the first thing I always do is check the power supply. Never assume that you have a board issue until you know you don't have a parts issue, because we could sit there fault finding the board, spend an hour doing that, and then end up having a faulty power supply. And obviously, you know, that's not good. We have to strip it down and unplug this power supply to be able to test that, because if there's a short on, for example, the 12-volt rail, that's going to shut the power supply off and act like a dead power supply anyway, hence not getting any power. So the first thing I always do is test the power supply and make sure we get 12 volts on that. And we do. It's not a power supply issue. We get 11.78 volts, which is normal. You do get a little bit of voltage drop on these. They don't quite put out 12 volts. So that's absolutely fine. So the next step would be to test this board here. And you're probably wondering how I can test that board without having another board, right? And the way that I can test that is by connecting up a Nexus ribbon and just plug it in the power supply. It's that simple, because if this Southbridge board is working, it will beep when I press the power button. So if we just take the Nexus board out of this, so we've got 4 screws in here on this board here, and then we can just unplug this, or rather unroute this flex ribbon. And yes, for those of you wondering, Nexus is the proper name for this. That is what Microsoft called this board. And this connector here is a Nexus connector. I'll show you that under the microscope if I have to look at that board. In fact, I can just zoom into it here. When I say zoom in, I mean I'm just going to try and get my camera to focus. Yeah, just there it says Nexus. So this is actually called a Nexus board. So what we can do, we can plug this in, and don't be fooled by this. This goes in with these pins, the visible gold pins facing the top of this Nexus connector, so it's facing the top of the board. It looks like it's upside down, but it's not. That's how it sits inside the console. Then what we can do, if we unplug the power supply, because it doesn't like a sudden load, so we have to unplug it and then plug it into there, and then we can plug it back into mains power. But if we just plug that in and attempt to press the power button, we can test and see if this board is working. It is. So that's normal. It's going to go off. It's going to turn off, but that's normal. It's because it can't communicate with the APU and stuff like that through this 80-pin connector down in the corners. So it's not a Southbridge board issue. It's going to be an issue on this board here. So we need to find out on this board what has gone wrong. So hopefully we can figure that out. I'm just going to move everything off to one side that I don't need. So that's going to be all of this. So get rid of all of that, and then we can focus just on this board here. I need to remove this ribbon because I don't want to break the connector. And this has been taken off before. So this has been worked on. Ping. There we go. So yeah, this looks like someone's put a 2020 board into a 2022 housing, because that don't make any sense that we've got a V1 board in a V2 case. And when I say V2 case, I mean the manufacture date is 2022. So unless someone's taken it apart for servicing and then put it into the wrong housing, someone's obviously done a board swap. Okay, you can actually see here as well on this heatsink clamp it says 29th of September 20. So yeah, this is a 2020 board and it's been put into a 2022 housing. So the serial number that's on this console isn't going to match the back cover, I'm assuming. So it looks like it's had a board swap at some point. When that is, I don't know. In fact, let me just make sure Yeah, it's got an SSD. So there's an SSD under this shield here. It's got an SSD with it, so that's absolutely fine. I just wanted to double check that. Many a time I've had people send me consoles with no SSD in it, and I'll sit there fault finding the board and then not realise for like half an hour, 40 minutes that there's no SSD in it. And that's a big problem because unfortunately they're paired to the board, and there's no way to repair a new SSD. Okay, that has not had a thermal paste change. So that thermal paste there is pretty hard. That's factory thermal paste right there. There's no way that's MX4 or even any cheap off-brand thermal paste. That is factory thermal paste, which means that someone's probably just taken this entire assembly and dropped it into a 2022 board, 2022 housing. Not that that really makes any difference. The parts are all the same, but I'm just saying it's not the original board. So let's have a look. So I'm just looking on a glance right now, just to see if I can see right off the bat that there's any damaged components, any signs of any rework, anything like that. You know, has anyone else worked on this? You know, have we got any burnt components? Have we got any signs of liquid damage? It doesn't appear so. I've removed that from there because I need to access these VRMs here. But it doesn't appear that we've got any burnt components. So what I can do then is if I just test this 12 volt line, we've got a test point just below this connector here. So what I can do is I can test this 12 volt line and just see if we've got a short on the 12 volt rail. So if I just go into continuity mode on the multimeter, pop one probe on ground, and then we should get a beep. Yes, we do. There we are. And just below this connector, we've got a test point. It says TP17 V12PO. And we do. We have a 0.1 ohm short there. So we've got a 12 volt short that we need to figure out. Chances are it's going to be a capacitor on the 12 volt phases, or it's going to be a bad MOSFET, or both. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take a closer look and see if I can see any obvious cracks on components or anything like that. I can't see any burnt components with just my eyes, but we might see a cracked capacitor, so we might not need to do much fault finding. So let's have a look closer under the scope. So what I'm looking for here, on these MOSFETs and things like that, so we've got, for example, U4. So these are all 12 volt VRMs. They're all 12 volt phases. And what I'm looking for mainly is going to be cracked capacitors. Like, for example, that there, you can see a mark on it. Whether that's anything to worry about, I don't know. We'll keep that in mind. But I'm mainly looking for cracks on the component or up close signs of any burnt components. So burnt capacitors, stuff like that. We've also got to check these other ones, the smaller ones as well, because even though they're smaller, they can still cause issues, obviously. You know, if one of those fails and cracks and becomes short, obviously we can have issues. So I'm just going to inspect all of these capacitors. I'm ignoring resistors because resistors won't cause a short to ground, or they shouldn't cause a short to ground. Normally a resistor, if that goes bad, it's going to be blowing open line and not actually you know, causing a short to ground. It doesn't normally decrease in resistance, it normally increases in resistance. So I'm just scanning using my eyes. A visual inspection is always key. And nope, I'm not seeing much. So I am seeing on this top VRM here, I am seeing like a little bit of an indent on this capacitor right here, but at the moment I'm going to ignore that, but it is in the back of my mind. Let's just have a look on the other side of the APU. We've got a bunch of capacitors on this side which could fail. And nope, no signs of any cracked components there. So let's have a look on this side. So on this side we've got a bunch of inductors and capacitors. So we can inspect these here. I think that's just random hairs here and there. Oh, hang on. Is that a crack? Is that a crack? Yes, it is. So can you see this? This component is visibly damaged. So we've got some very obvious signs there. Yeah. Yeah, that is visibly burnt. Okay, and that's on number 3. So 1, 2, 3. We've got a cracked component there. Okay. So let's just put a little temporary mark there. Something I'm going to see, and it'll remind me that that's there. I say temporary mark, it doesn't matter. I can scratch the board, it's fine. I'm just trying to remind myself before I continue with the inspection. So just because I found a cracked component there, I'm not just going to go ahead and take that one straight off. I'm going to look for any more first. And yeah, we've got some discoloration here, some kind of like rainbowing. That could be visual signs of excess heat in the area. Okay, no, I'm not finding anything else there. Let's just have a look on this side. So I know I've got a blown component. But I just want to finish up with the visual inspection so as I don't miss anything. So this is all related to 12 volt, which is why I'm continuing to check these areas, even though I've found something. Okay, I'm not seeing any more. So we're going to come back over here. We're going to go to 1, 2, 3. And if I just take my multimeter, put one probe on ground and just check this cap, it's short on both sides. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that component from the board. I'm going to add a little bit of leaded solder to this. We've got some capacitors very close here. Probably not wise to use a micro pencil on a Xbox Series X. Doesn't matter if it looks a mess though. Because I can clean all of that up afterwards. But the micro pencil can't handle the thermal mass of this thing. So I'm using the wrong tool for the job. I'm just adding some leaded solder because that's going to assist me with removing it quicker than normal. And the reason for that is, like I said, there's some capacitors right here, these aluminium capacitors here, and they do not like getting warm. They do not like heat at all. So I want to try and reduce the amount of time that I've got to use hot air on this area. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use hot air, but I'm also going to use a soldering iron at the same time. I've got my hot air set at 440, 40% airflow. And I am putting some direct heat on this cap. I'm also using the iron at the same time just to speed it up. Like I said, I don't want to use heat for a prolonged period of time here. Ping. Okay, that's disappeared. I don't know where that cap's gone, but it doesn't matter. As long as it's not on the board, I don't care. I have a bit of excess solder there, and then I'm going to just clean this area up. I'm just gathering up some solder on the iron at the same time because I don't want this much solder on. You see what I mean about the thermal mass there? I think it's wise to actually wick this away, to be honest. There's too much solder there and it's just going to cause the new capacitor to just fly and float around. So I'll wick it away. That's more like it. Yes, it looks a bit of a mess, but the hot air will take care of that in a minute. But let's just test this area again. So, yep, we don't have a short there now. So that side is short, that side is ground, that side is not. And if we go back to this 12 volt line here, no short. So I am checking ground, and we don't get a short. So that short is now gone, which means that the issue on this looks like it was down to that one single capacitor. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to grab a donor board and I'm going to pull a capacitor from a donor board rather than having to worry about the results and stuff like results. What am I thinking? Results. Without having to worry about the values of it and stuff like that. So I'll grab a donor board and I'll just pull one straight from there. Okay, there we are. So that's a new cap soldered. I'm just going to clean this up, make it nice and pretty. The donor board I've just taken this from was liquid damage, so it doesn't look the best, but it will do in a minute when I freshen up these joints. I really should not be using a micro pencil for this. Ah, damn it. It fell off. Yeah, and that's why I shouldn't use a micro pencil. Oh dear. Well, dang it! I keep pinging the capacitors everywhere. Alright, there we go. So let's just clean this up. So I'm just cleaning up using IPA and a flux brush. There was one of the caps that pinged. Just get rid of that, and we've got a solder blob there. There we go. Okie dokie. We're good to go there. Let's just make sure that the short hasn't returned. So one probe on ground. And no, short gone. There we go. Beautiful. I'm going to get this cleaned up. I've got to get rid of the old thermal paste that's on this, and then I can go ahead and get it all reassembled and ready to test. So by the time I've cleaned all of this up and put fresh thermal paste on and stuff and got it all back in the housing, the board will be nice and cool and ready to power on. I don't recommend trying to power it on while the board is warm. For example, that's too hot for me to touch. It begins to get very uncomfortable very quick. If it's too hot to touch, it's probably too hot to turn on. So I'll just take my time on doing the thermal paste and stuff. I like to get in all the gaps around the capacitors on the APU and stuff. It's not necessary, but I'll just take my time on it because it gives a chance for the board itself to cool down anyway. Okay, there we go. So just for reference, the component which I replaced was on this side of the board, just there. But there we go, that's the thermal paste removed. I can go ahead and add some fresh stuff now. I'll use MX4, for those of you wondering. So I'll just put a nice line across it. We've even got polystyrene inside the heatsink, look. Nice. Very nice. Okay, let's get the thermal paste off here. Let's get rid of that. And we'll get a nice clean surface. This bit isn't recommended, it isn't required, but I'll just tend to do it anyway. That's as clean as it's going to get without using some sort of chemical, which I'm not going to do, or without buffing it, which again I'm not going to do. It's not required. I'm just going to take this viscous paste here and pop that back on these VRMs. There we go. And now I can begin the reassembly process. That cap was off a different board, by the way. It's not come off this, in case you're wondering. A little recommendation here as well. You want to put even pressure on this because these APU clamps put some serious pressure on the APU. So if you just slightly screw it in, first of all, that'll help you to line everything up and make sure that every screw lines up. But number two, if you slightly screw it in and just take it in turns going corner to corner, yes, it takes a little bit longer, but it just means that we're not putting excess pressure on one corner of the APU. Everything's going to be nice and even. There we are. Beautiful. And now I can go ahead and just put the rest of this on. Okay, so before reassembly, notice I've still got the Nexus board plugged in. That's so I can test it, make sure it all turns on. If it turns on and displays on the computer or on the capture card, then I'll go ahead and reassemble it. That's a thumbs up. That is now turning on and working. Awesome stuff. Excellent. Right, I'll plug this into the capture card then. And there we go. That is working perfectly fine. So all that's left to do for me now is just to give this a full test. The console itself is working. The main power issue was obviously down to that one damaged capacitor, which we've replaced. And yeah, this console can live again. So why that capacitor died, I do not know. I don't have a clue. I don't have an explanation for you. Sometimes these things happen. Sometimes they just fail. And this is an important thing to learn, is to unplug your console at night, because, well, there's always power running through these things. Even when they're turned off, they're still running in low power mode. They still go through updates while they're powered off and stuff like that. And it just puts excess wear on the console. And yeah, this probably couldn't have been avoided. It would have died eventually. You know, it could have even just been down to a random power surge. But yeah, just turn the console off at night and it will minimise the risk of damage. It will prolong the life of your device and you won't end up having to pay a repair bill. Obviously, this is not the customer's fault, but yeah, it could have prolonged the life of it for a few more years at least. But yeah, never mind. All that being said, this console's fixed and I'm sure the customer is going to be happy. If you do need this repair or any other repair, you can obviously get in touch with me at www.thecoder.repair. And if you need any parts and supplies for these, I do sell them on my online store. If you can't find it, drop me a message and I'll see if I can source the part for you as well. So with that being said, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. Let me know what you think down in the comments down below. And as always, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. It really does help me to feel popular. With that being said, thank you for watching and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care everyone. Bye for now.